lived to the south and west of the Sahara Desert in approximately 500 BCE.
Tennessee?
Each town had
House?
its own king who ruled over
Yeah, but now
communities
in
of
that.
large families.
Yeah.
Each town had its own king who ruled over communities of large families. The Nok worked as farmers, merchants, metalworkers, and craftworkers, specializing in clay figures. Carthage was a city founded by the Phoenicians around about 800 BCE on the coast of the North Africa. It became a large trading empire with colonies near and far, like in Spain and Sicily. Carthage was hugely powerful for about 600 years until it fought Rome in 3 deadly wars. 3 strikes and they were out.
A little bit lower voice than this. Still lower voice.
In East Africa, a major trading center developed in the coastal city of Axum in about 100 CE. Axum's trading center lasted for hundreds of years, controlling routes between the Mediterranean Sea and Asia. There are very few written records for many Asian African cultures, which relied on oral traditions to transmit information from generation to generation. Historians also rely heavily on oral histories to gather the piece of ancient Africa. Oral history, on account of the past handed down through spoken word, usually by the people who are considered to be tradition keepers of a culture or society, elders, priests, etc. Chapter 5. The Phoenicians and the Israelites. Phoenicia. The Phoenicians were a polytheistic seafaring people who settled on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea and lived there from 1550 to 300 BCE. They were best known for 2 things: their trade and their alphabet. The Phoenicians told stories of sea monsters to scare off other people from trying to compete with them for trade. The Phoenicians traveled and traded as far as the Atlantic Ocean and built a colony in Carthage in North Africa. They built large ships sailing from the central coastal town of Tyre and trading lumber from cedar forests and purple dye made from snails in exchange for figs, olives, and spices. The purple dye was used by the Phoenicians to dye clothes. Purple was a pretty fancy color at the time. It eventually came to signify royalty. The Phoenician system of writing consisted of an alphabet of 22 characters to represent the sounds of their language. It was easier to spell out words with sounds than use pictures for objects. This new alphabet wasn't just for scribes. It was created to help Phoenicians trade goods with peoples who spoke different languages. It spread as the Phoenicians traded with new lands. This alphabet would eventually be passed on to the Greeks and to the Romans, who created the alphabet we use today. Israel. The Israelites lived south of Phoenicia in the land of Israel from around 1250 to 700 BCE. The Torah, the sacred text of the Israelites, is used by historians looking for clues about ancient history. The Israelites' leader was Abraham. Abraham, who taught the Israelites monotheism. According to the Torah, Abraham received a divine command to leave Mesopotamia, so he led his people to Canaan, the modern-day religion of Israel, Lebanon, and the Palestinian territories. In perhaps 2000 BCE, because of drought and famine, the Israelites moved to Egypt, where they were eventually enslaved and were freed only when Moses led them out of Egypt in the Great Exodus, probably between 1450 and 1200 BCE. Eventually, the Israelites returned to Canaan. Exodus, any kind of mass departure. Jerusalem. After defeating the Philistines in Canaan, King David developed Israel into a united kingdom and made Jerusalem its capital in 100 BCE. David's son, King Solomon, built the Temple of Jerusalem. When Solomon died around 931 BCE, the kingdom splits into two parts: the kingdom of Israel in the north and the kingdom of Judah in the south, as in David and Goliath. The Assyrians took advantage of the unrest to gain control. Then, in turn, the Chaldeans conquered them, destroyed Jerusalem, and exiled the people to Babylonia. Exile, to force people out of their country or homeland. Next in line to conquer the region were the Persians, who allowed the Israelites to return and rebuild Jerusalem and its temple. The Israelites eventually became known as the Jewish people, and their religion is called Judaism. The ancient Israelites' religion was Judaism. It is characterized by a covenant between the Israelites and their monotheistic God. Covenant, a contract or agreement. The contract, according to their sacred text, the Torah, promised Abraham that his people would become kings and build nations if they allowed God's laws. Later, Moses promised to lead the Israelites back to Canaan, or the promised land. Torah. The Ten Commandments are Judaism's divine laws on proper behavior toward God and each other, and are believed to have been given to the Israelites through Moses. In ancient times, Judaism had prophets, religious teachers who spoke for God. The prophets advised people on how God wanted them to live.